السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا اللهم علما. آمين. وبعد. Welcome to the seventh and final episode of Towards a Modern Awakening. Today is the end of our 7-episode series, and I will talk about service mindset, or ubudiyat al-khidmah. And I left the best for last. And to be honest, everything I talked about in the previous 6 episodes have been nothing but a build-up to be able to talk about this final concept today. Service mindset is that thread that pulls all the topics I talked about before together. And really, the purpose of me talking about them was to be able to arrive at this last concept, to discuss it and shed light on it. You see, leadership is only valuable if the person who is in leadership, whether they took leadership or were granted leadership, are in it for service. If they're not in it for service, then nothing will work. If they're in it for any other reason, then there will be no khair that will come from it. Those who are in leadership have to be in leadership with the goal, with the orientation of serving people. And those are a part of fellowship. Those are a part of this leadership complex, and they're in the state of being leaders on a smaller scale, following others. They have to be doing it for the benefit of serving the public as well, knowing that when we work together under leadership, more service is offered to people. When it comes to our understanding of Islam, the way that the Islamic narratives that we put forward, our intellect, our thought, our collective thought product has to be focused on serving people. Meaning, when we're trying to come up with, when we're trying to think about Islam, understand Islam, offer Islamic education, offer Islamic knowledge, we're doing it with the service of people in our minds. We're trying to offer people something that can benefit them, that will help them, making complex ideas simple so that people can understand it. The goal has to be to serve people. When we talk about issues like networking and mentorship, really all it is the most delicate and intimate form of service, because people are giving their time and giving their knowledge and giving their experience. And networking, what it does, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لِيَتَّخِذَ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا سُخْرِيًّا. You get to know each other so that you can benefit from one another, and you can use the experiences and skills of others, so there's service. And we talk about our values and our behaviors. Really, the value that I left out when I talked about values and behaviors, it was the value of service. I just left it till the end because it's the most important value, and it's the value that unfortunately is missing, and that we need to definitely regain again and reclaim that value back into our value set and into our value system. When it comes to our intentions and our spirituality, understanding that tazkiyat an-nafs, and purifying your heart and purifying our souls, we're purifying it from the nafs that doesn't. We're purifying all the negative aspects of our being, of our souls, that don't want to serve, because our nafs doesn't want to serve; it wants to be served. And we have to teach our nafs that no, you're here to serve, and that takes a lot of work, a lot of effort has to be put into that. Efficiency and effectiveness, all they really mean is just figuring out what to do, the right thing, and doing that thing right. The right thing is to serve. And figuring that out is a part of the process. Figuring out that the right thing that we need to do is to find services. I mean, if us as Muslims in our communities don't know what to do, then we're not offering the right services. And once we find out what services need to be offered, we have to offer them right. All the topics I talked about are really just to serve this last one. And why is it that I want to talk about it? Well, the reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us, as He worded Himself subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He said, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I only created the jinn and the human being for liya'budun. And he used the word ibadah or ubudiyya. And usually the way we translate it is we say to worship. And that's fine, it's not necessarily wrong. But let's take the actual word of ubudiyya and try to understand it linguistically, what it means. From the word ubudiyya is the word abd. Abd in Arabic means one of two things: either a servant or a slave in a specific context. So let's leave the concept of slavery, because we don't have that anymore. Let's talk about the concept of a servant. Al-abd, the only purpose of a abd existing inside a household, for example, is for khidmah. العبد هو المملوك للخدمة. It's a person who is there to serve. The concept of ubudiyya comes from طريق معبد, a road that is paved, meaning there are no ups and downs. It's leveled. People walk back and forth on it, meaning it's humble. There's a lot of humility in it, and that's what ubudiyya means. It's tadallul, it's inkisar, it's being humble for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the word abd means servant, which is what a service is. If we're servants, that means we're here to serve. Isn't that the idea? Isn't that literally the definition of what abd means? And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He gave us our job description, He said, Khalifa. Khalifa means responsible. Responsible for this service. Responsible for taking care of things. Khalifa of the stewardship of the earth, meaning we're responsible to serve the earth and those who live on it. This concept, unfortunately, is missing in the way we look at Islam. Well, it's no big deal. It's just the basis and foundation of all of Islam. So no big deal if we don't even know what the basis and foundation of Islam is. But this is something that is so important and critical and crucial within our religion, and somehow it's been pulled out of our day-to-day conversation and from our understanding of why we're here. And if I say, okay, if you're like, all right, I agree with you, we're here to serve. Who are we here to serve? We're here to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Well, you're like, well, we can't physically actually serve Him. He says subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can't serve me. You can't do anything to benefit me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond. Whatever we do doesn't really benefit Him, doesn't reach Him physically. Then how do we serve Him subhanahu wa ta'ala if He's not here physically to be served? Do we just say, okay, then forget about that? No, we serve His creation, which is what He's trying to explain. Service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala equals service of His creation, service of those whom He created subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why we were created. This is the basis, the foundation of Islam and of religion itself. The concept of ubudiyya, which means وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, to serve me. That's the more accurate translation if you understand what the word actually means. He says subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ, right at the beginning of the Quran, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. إِيَّاكَ, it's you and only you whom we serve. The Quran is filled with this concept. There's a beautiful ayah in the Quran, in Surah Al-Ra'd, that I like a lot, where He talks subhanahu wa ta'ala about righteousness and falsehood. الحق والباطل كذلك يضرب الله الحق والباطل. And He gives the example of a river of water, or a sail. And He says, and he gives us the example of how on top of the water there's always just whatever dead leaves or whatever on top. That's what you can see. That's the apparent part. So He says, فَأَمَّا الزَّبَدُ, it's called zabad. فَأَمَّا الزَّبَدُ فَيَذْهَبُ جُفَاءً. What's on top, the dead leaves and all the filth that is picked up on the way, it goes uselessly. It's purposeless. It doesn't do anything. يَذْهَبُ جُفَاءً. No one cares. وَأَمَّا مَا يَنْفَعُ النَّاسَ فَيَمْكُثُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. And as far as what actually benefits people, it goes deep into the soil, into the ground, where it will brew and grow one day into something that is filled with khair. If you go through أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي يَدُعُّ الْيَتِيمِ وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. The person who disbelieves in religion is a person who will harm an orphan and won't encourage others to feed the needy. The people who go to Jahannam وَلِيَادُ بِاللَّهِ will call out from Jahannam after being asked by others, why are you in Jahannam? مَا سَلَكَكُمْ فِي سَقَرٍ قَالُوا لَمْ نَكُ مِنَ الْمُصَلِّينَ وَلَمْ نَكُ نُطْعِمُ الْمِسْكِينَ. We didn't feed the needy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the Ansar, وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. And they will always put selflessly others ahead of them, even if they are also in need. He says subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَلَقْتَحَمَ الْعَقَبَةِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةِ فَكُّ رَقَبَةٍ أَوْ إِطْعَامٌ فِي يَوْمٍ ذِي مَسْغَبَةٍ. The true obstacle that we need to overcome is the ability to free others from slavery or from debt when we have the ability to do so. Or for us to feed someone who is hungry on a day that we are hungry as well. The Prophet ﷺ, 50% of what he talks about ﷺ is nothing but this concept. And I'll just give you a few examples of it. من نفس عن مؤمن كربة نفس الله عنه كربة من كرب يوم القيامة. He who eases a difficulty for a mu'min, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ease his difficulty on the day of judgment. ومن يسر على معسر يسر الله عليه في الدنيا والآخرة. And he who eases a situation that is a misfortune for someone else, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ease his path in dunya and akhirah. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ فِي عَوْنِ الْعَبْدِ مَا كَانَ الْعَبْدُ فِي عَوْنِ أَخِيهِ. And as long as the servant is taking care of his brother or sister, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will continue to take care of that servant. He was asked alayhi salatu wasalam once, من أحب العباد إلى الله وما أحب الأعمال إلى الله. Who are the most beloved servants to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and what are the most beloved actions to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So he says عليه الصلاة والسلام أحب العباد إلى الله أنفعهم للناس. The servants that are most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the most beneficial amongst them to others, to people. وأحب الأعمال إلى الله, and the most beloved actions to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala سرور تدخله على مسلم. Surur, happiness, joy that you will have enter the heart of you will cause its entry into the heart of a Muslim. أو كربة تفرجها عنه, or a difficulty that you will remove from them. أو جوع تطرد عنه جوعا, أو تطرد عنه جوعا, you take away his hunger by feeding them. أو تقضي عنه دينا, or you take away debt by paying the debt off. ولا أن أمشي في حاجة أخي أحب إلي من أن أعتكف في مسجدي هذا شهرا. And for me to go out with a brother of mine who's in need of service, in need of help, is better than doing i'tikaf in the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ for a month. ومن مشى في حاجة أخيه حتى يثبتها له أثبت الله قدمه يوم تزول الأقدام. And those who walk by their brothers or sisters to help them, they have a haja, they have a need, a certain need, and they go with them and they stay with them until they fulfill that need and help them with what they want or what they're requiring help. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have their feet steady on the day of judgment when others will be running around in fear. He says, alayhi salatu wasalam, أَنَا وَكَافِلُ الْيَتِيمِ كَهَاتَيْنِ فِي الْجَنَّةِ. Myself and those who take care of orphans are like this in Jannah. He says, السَّاعِي عَلَى الْأَرْمَلَةِ وَالْمِسْكِينِ كَالْمُجَاهِدِ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَوْ الْقَائِمِ اللَّيْلِ الصَّائِمِ النَّهَارِ. Someone who goes to take care of a widow or of a needy person, it's like someone who's performing jihad in battle, or someone who is fasting all day and praying all night. Khadija radiallahu anha, when the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam came running down the mountain in fear after meeting Jibreel alayhi salam for the first time, he said, إِنِّي خِفْتُ عَلَى نَفْسِي يَا Khadija, I'm fearing for myself that this may be some form of punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَقَالَتْ كَلَّا وَاللَّهِ لَا يُخْزِيكَ اللَّهُ أَبَدًا. She said, no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would never punish you. He would never mistreat you. إِنَّكَ لَتَصِلُ الرَّحِمِ. You strengthen the relations of kinship. وَتُكْسِبُ الْمَعْدُومِ. And someone who cannot make money, you will help them make a living. وَتَحْمِلُ الْكَلِّ. And you figuratively carry someone who can't seem to carry themselves. وَتُعِينُ عَلَى نَوَائِبِ الْحَقِّ. And you help people who are going through the calamities of life. وَتُغِيثُ الْمَلْهُوفِ. And someone who is in desperate need of help, you're always there to help them. These were his ethics, alayhi salatu wasalam. This is what he did. This was his mindset, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, prior to becoming a prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. The point of our existence is to serve. Now listen carefully. A servant doesn't have an agenda. Servants, they don't have agendas. They're not trying to get people to do certain things. Or servants don't have agendas. Servants, all they care about is the satisfaction of the one that they are serving. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who we serve, and that's really all that matters to us. His satisfaction with us, His happiness with us, subhanahu wa ta'ala, jalla jalalullah, is all that we look at as servants. The servants, khadim laysa lahu hadh nafs. The servant doesn't have an ego. If you're here to serve, if our pure and only an exclusive goal is to serve, if that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala literally put us on earth, Servants don't have egos. Servants aren't the first to eat, servants are the last. Servants don't even care if they actually get a chance or not, because their goal is to serve others. That's why they're here. So there's no place for them to have an ego in the first place. They can't have egos. They can't care about anything but the satisfaction of the ones they are serving, who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Really, we're serving people, but we're actually serving Allah. Remember that khidmatullah is the service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we're talking about, through serving His creation. Servants don't have agendas. They're just here to serve. Those who don't serve do one of two things. They either are trying to control or they're complaining. If we're not serving, that means we're trying to control. We are not here to control people. We're not here to control their thoughts. We're not here to control their opinions. We're not here to control their behaviors. We're not here to control anybody. Because the one who controls al-Muhaymin subhanahu wa ta'ala is Allah. He controls everything. And if He wants to control people, then He can go ahead and do that. That's totally His choice and His decision, Jalla Jalalullah. But He chose not to. And He did not put me here, or you, to do that for Him. We're not here to control people on His behalf. That's not why He put us here. He put us here to serve people on His behalf. We're here to serve. And this is a paradigm shift of our mentality that has to happen, and it has to happen now. We have to go from wanting to control, or wanting to get ahead, or being selfish, wanting to take care of ourselves, to wanting to serve. Because that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put us on earth. And if you're not doing that, then it's one of three things. Either we're serving, we're controlling, or we're complaining. We have a lot of complainers. Those who don't like this and don't like that, and that's not working, and you're not doing this well, and this could be done better. Of course. The ones who have the million ideas, but aren't willing to put any effort towards actually achieving any of them. But if you understand the concept of service, that changes the way we're supposed to look at the world altogether. I put together 6 components of service. The first one is ikhlas. In order for us to be able to serve, we need to be sincere. There has to be a high level of sincerity in our minds and our hearts. And that's why the importance of talking about intention and spirituality. The second one is tawadu', having humility, humbleness, which is a value. For us to be humble, for us not to be arrogant, not to be looking down on people, to feel that humility is a part of who we are. We're servants. We are humble by definition, by creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by definition is al-mutakabbir. He is the supreme. He is the kabir subhanahu wa ta'ala. By definition, that is who He is. However, for us to be mutakabbirin, for us to be supreme, doesn't make sense, because we were created as servants and our goal is to serve. Now, I hope when you're listening to this, it's not bothering you, because if it is, then you have to go and revise the set of values that you have and the level of spirituality that you obtain, that you possess, because this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us to do. I'm not making this up. This is what the Quran teaches. This is what the Sunnah teaches. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made very clear in His book. Sincerity, humbleness. Number 2, trust in Allah. Number 3, trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we serve Him and He will deliver for us yawm al-qiyamah. That we serve Him and then He will be satisfied with us and He will protect us and take care of us subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have to trust Allah. Number 4, you have to trust people. I think that's missing. You have to trust people. Those who can try to control others can try to control people because they don't trust them. They don't trust that the general public will make the right decision if they are properly served. Serve people and they will make the right decisions and they will do the right thing. You have to trust people. It's beyond me how Muslims could go through lives not trusting Muslims or not trusting people. It's a part of the concept of our jama'ah that we trust one another. Trusting our brethren that they will do, that if we perform service properly, then they will make the right decision. Number 5, al-mujahada or jihad, which in its essence means to strive. It's not going to be easy. We're going to strive against a lot of difficulties as we serve. Service is something that is not easy. It's difficult. No one wants to serve because it's not easy, because it's difficult. You don't want to be the servant because it requires so much work and so much effort, and you're always on your feet and you're always doing more because there's always more people to serve and more service to perform. But that's what mujahada and jihad means, that you strive. It's a concept in Islam that you continue to do to the end of your life. And number 6, at-tadhiyah, to sacrifice. Service requires us to sacrifice our egos, to sacrifice our wealth, to sacrifice our time, to sacrifice our lives. by dedicating our lives to service of other people. It's so important that we think about these concepts and spend time reflecting upon them now that we do have some time to do so. As individuals and as institutions, we have to become service-oriented. As individuals and as institutions, we need to become service-oriented. We have to start focusing on service as being the goal of our existence and what we are here to do. And that's going to take a bit of time, obviously. As individuals, if our goal in life was to serve, you wouldn't find people fighting over parking spaces. You wouldn't find people pushing and shoving. Because the concept is, well, I'm here to serve others, and if right now I can serve this person by offering, then tfaddal, go ahead. I will take care of myself there, no worries. The servant always drinks last, always eats last, always takes care of themselves last. If actually we were all serving one another, these problems wouldn't even come up. We'd be spending more time offering each other something that we both want because we understand that I'm here to serve. Right now I'm at a position where someone wants something that I want. If I am service-oriented, tfaddal, of course you can take it. Now, does that mean, and if everyone's not like that, it's okay. You be like that because you understand why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you. You understand what you're here to do. You are perfecting the maqam of ubudiyyah in your life. You're taking care of the concept of worship and service in your life for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let people do what they want to do. They'll be held accountable for it. Don't worry. You just do what you know is the right thing to do, which is service. Our institutions have to be service-oriented. Our institutions have to see people as opportunities to serve, not as potential donators, not as evidence of popularity. When people come into our institutions, we have to look at them as people who are in need of different services, that some we are offering right now and some we may not be offering and need to start offering very soon so that we can meet their needs and serve them. When we see people, that's how we're supposed to be, rigged and programmed. That is our orientation. We see the public, we see our population, our communities as people who are in need of our service, and we are going to provide services for them. These are the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are not personal belongings to anybody, not to boards, not to anyone. These are owned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the only purpose they serve is to serve. That's the only purpose they serve. It's to serve Allah through serving people in the community. And that's something that when I look around, I feel that we are lacking. We're not thinking like that. We're continuously trying to benefit from people who come to the masajid. We're trying to benefit from them. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be trying to serve them. If everyone did that, by the way, all the problems would just instantaneously disappear. Because if when I see you, I try to serve you. And when you see me, you do the same, then we're both going to walk away happy. Because we're trying to serve one another. Because we're following the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not because we think little of ourselves or less of ourselves. No. We're doing this because that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us to do. And because that is the only reason that He granted us breaths to live subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that we could serve. And it's beyond me sometimes how these critical, foundational concepts of Islam have been removed from our mindset. And unless we reclaim them again, there's not much that's going to change in our lives as Muslims. It's not easy. It's not problem-free. Serving people is a headache. It's difficult. It takes so much effort and time. But that's what all the prophets did before us. That's what the Prophet ﷺ lived his life doing. ﷺ served day and night. That's all he did. People would stop him in the middle of the road. Al-Ajuz, an old lady, would stop him in the middle of the day and talk to him for an hour about her problems and the problems of her children and her daughter and her husband. And the Prophet ﷺ would sit there and listen. Because sometimes the best, all you can do is give an ear. وَمِنْهُمُ الَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ النَّبِيِّ وَيَقُولُونَ هُوَ أُذُنٌ. Some of them harm the Prophet ﷺ by saying things that are difficult and rude and disrespectful. When you ask them, why are you doing that? They say, well, he listens to us. قُلْ هُوَ أُذُنُ خَيْرٍ لَكُمْ. Yes, he listens. He's someone who listens and he does that out of khair for others to help people. Sometimes you just need someone to appreciate and listen. He served so much that and it was so difficult for him that the Quran had to come and tell the Sahaba directly through verses that were going to be recited till the Day of Judgment to give him some space. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَدْخُلُوا بُيُوتَ النَّبِيِّ إِلَّا أَن يُؤْذَنَ لَكُمْ إِلَىٰ طَعَامٍ غَيْرَ نَاظِرِينَ إِنَاهُ. In the verses in Surah Al-Ahzab where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the believers, don't enter his houses unless he asks you over for food. And when you do enter and the food is over, leave. Don't sit around waiting for a dars or waiting for something or enjoying his company. إِنَّ ذَلِكُمْ كَانَ يُؤْذِي النَّبِيِّ فَيَسْتَحْيِي مِنْكُمْ. What you are doing, it harms the Prophet ﷺ, but he's too embarrassed to tell you, because that's how he's oriented, alayhi salatu wasalam. He's here to serve, no matter what people do to him. The man who on the day he was giving the bounties after a battle to the Sahaba, and a man came behind him and took him by the collar and twisted the collar and almost choking him, telling him, give me, أعطني من مال الله لا من مالك ولا من مال أبيك. Give me from the bounty, from the wealth of Allah. I don't want your wealth or the wealth of your father. I want it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Sahaba lost their minds. They're going to kill the guy. He's choking the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He takes him, alayhi salatu wasallam, enters into the house and keeps on telling him, I'll give you this much. Is this enough? No, it's not enough. Okay, how about this much? No, it's not enough. Until the guy was happy. He kept on offering him more and more wealth. And then he told him, and the man was very happy, and he made dua for the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him, well, you need to walk outside and say that to them, because the Sahaba are very upset with the way you behave. Can you go and say the nice thing you just said in here outside? So he said yes. So he walked out and he made dua for the Prophet ﷺ, and the Sahaba calmed down. And he left, and the Prophet ﷺ turned to the Sahaba and he told them, مَثَلِي وَمَثَلُكُمْ كَمَثَلِ رَجُلٍ أَضَاعَ نَاقَةً. The example of you and I in this situation was like a man who had a camel, and his camel ran away. And people are telling him, we'll bring you the camel. And they run after the camel, and the camel gets scared and runs farther away. And he's telling them, leave me, I'll take care of my camel. And then he picks up some grass and he shakes it in his hand, and the camel comes back. So he tells them, وَلَوْ تَرَكْتُكُمْ وَمَا أَرَدْتُمْ لَكَانَ مِنْ أَهْلِ النَّارِ. If I allowed you to punish him for the fact that he was choking your Prophet, then he would have been from أهل النار. If I allow you to do that, وَلَكِنِّي حُلْتُ بَيْنِي بَيْنَكُمْ وَبَيْنَهُ فَهُوَ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْجَنَّةِ. And now, but I didn't let you. I was a barrier between allowing you to do what you wanted. Now he's going to go to Jannah. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ sees people as opportunities to take them to Jannah. Because he's here to serve, alayhi salatu wasalam. That's all. His ego can take if he has to pay for the service of others with his ego, no problem. We're servants. We shouldn't even have egos to begin with. So no big deal. If I'm going to pay for it with my ego, that's a very cheap price to save someone and to serve someone. A man once walked into a masjid, Arabi, when the Prophet ﷺ was giving a dars, and he peed in the masjid. He peed and he urinated inside the masjid. The Sahaba were going to get up and the Prophet ﷺ ordered them, stay seated. لا تجرموا عليه بولا. Let him finish. Of course, it's impossible to stop once the flow begins. So he left the Prophet. He left him to do it. The one who's telling us the story is the Arabi. قال فلما فقه الأعرابي. When the Arabi learned Islam and realized the mistake he had made, قال بأبي هو وأمي. I would sacrifice my family and my life for him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. أتاني فلم يؤنب. He came to me and he didn't yell at me. ولم يضرب. He didn't hit me. ولم يشتم. He didn't say a bad word. وإنما قال لي يا هذا لم تجعل المساجد لي هذا أرق عليه دلوا من الماء. The masajid weren't made for something like this. Masajid are made for something different. Pour some water on it and don't do it again. Because his goal, alayhi salatu, is to serve this man, not to teach them. And unfortunately, we come from countries that are filled with dictatorships and oppression and persecution. And what that does to people's minds and collectively even, what that does to societies is it makes societies extremely rough and difficult and selfish. And a lot of that is rubbed off on us as Muslims. And we're dealing with people in that manner. Ya Sheikh, you walk into a business somewhere, and I work in public service. You walk into public service places, and the employee sits there, and they smile to you immediately, and they offer you a seat and get you something to drink, and they treat you. Why? Because they're in public service, because they're paid for it. Is it possible that someone will serve others kindly for money better than someone who's going to serve them for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is it possible that money is more valuable to us than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's reward and Allah's command and the reason He created us to begin with? I find that difficult to understand, difficult to accept. Your action plan here is simple. You can probably figure it out yourself. We have to have a shift of a paradigm mentally, from a mindset perspective, from the essence of who we are. And we have to gear ourselves towards service, towards serving others, serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through serving His creation. If we can do that, then the problems in our society will just evaporate. They'll just disappear because we're all doing the same thing. We're all looking for a way to serve, figuring out how can I serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how can I serve my community, how can I serve people. You find a way, something you're good at, something that you enjoy doing, and you serve people through it. And you look forward to serving people. And it's the magic trick, it's the solution for all the problems that we have on an individual level, on an institutional level. We have to get inside our institutions people who are service-oriented, who all they want to do is serve and find ways to serve. This series, something I put together a number of years ago, and I've been waiting for the right time to kind of present it. And it's very dear to me. The concepts in it are very important. And if you haven't heard the whole thing, I would ask you to, or request that you listen to it again and give me feedback on it. The references I used are many. You'll find them in the comments of on the page if you're interested. Everything that Sheikh Muhammad al-Ghazali wrote, everything Sheikh Ali Tantawi wrote, everything Dr. Ahmed Khair al-Umari writes, Hafidhahullah. The book of Sahwa al-Islamiyya for Ibn Uthaymeen, for example, Shurut al-Nahda for Malik ibn Nabi, for example, Fi Afaq al-Ta'alim by Sa'id Hawa, for example, Ihya Ulum al-Din for Imam al-Ghazali, the books of Dr. Muhammad Amara, rahimahullah. I put a list of references of books that throughout the years I've read, and I put together these ideas from. And I don't know if they're all translated or not into English, but you can look at them and you can Google them and read and try and think about. We are in need of a modern awakening. It doesn't have to be exactly the way the Muslims rose back in the day, back when the Prophet ﷺ was around. We're going to need an awakening that suits the parameters of our reality. It's going to look different. The modern awakening of Muslims is not going to be identical to how the Khilafah was, for example, the Rashida or the Umayyah. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be something that has the same values, same concepts, the same ideas. It's going to contain with it the spirit and the essence of what Islam is, but it'll look a bit different. It's a modern awakening. It's something that's going to suit us, our time, our reality, and the era that we live in. And I believe that the concepts that I shared with you in these 7 episodes are critical and crucial for a modern awakening, regardless of where people are living, listening to this. Whether you're living in North America, or you're living in Europe, or you're living in Islamic countries, if these concepts and these topics that I talked about can be revisited, revised, and tweaked and fixed in a way that allows them to actually serve their purpose, then inshallah we will see a lot of khair in a short period of time. And I hope really that my younger brothers and sisters take time to listen to this, and actually consider applying these ideas to their lives. The goal is, inshallah, tomorrow that same time at 5:30, we will have a Q&A session. It'll be live, inshallah. There'll be a Facebook page, and you'll be able to put your questions there. You can even put questions on the Facebook page right now, and I can collect them and answer them tomorrow. And you can ask questions live as well, inshallah. And I can address any concerns, or if there's any feedback regarding this this series, or any plans of what we can do moving forward, inshallah, collectively as a Muslim community. Suggestions or ideas of what we can start doing and how we can apply some of these concepts and what we need, and what is missing within our societies. So please, inshallah, if I'll run it tomorrow. If there are no questions, I'll probably cut it short, or because I don't want to sit playing on my phone the whole time. If there is interest and there are questions, then inshallah we'll run it for around an hour. If that's something people are interested in participating in. I hope this series was beneficial. Whatever good you found in this series was from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, and whatever mistakes you heard was mine. and I seek Allah's forgiveness for them, and I seek yours as well. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our deeds and grant us qabool yawm al-qiyamah, and allow us to enjoy the rest of Ramadan and open our masajid as soon as possible, and alleviate this difficulty that we are going through as a human race. Allahumma ameen. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. جزاكم الله خير. بارك الله فيكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.